It is Wednesday, September 7th. Welcome to this week's edition of CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher. Josh, your final show before you become Mr. Elizabeth Stalker.
Oh, God, I hope she's watching.
I hope so, too. Hi, Liz. But we have a big show today.
Yes, we do. Along with having the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate, Dan Carter, on. We're going to talk about one of our local first selectmen is taking a leave of absence. That came out this morning. And we have a few other topics from around the state.
Yeah, U.S. Senator Chris Murphy walking across the state. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And, of course, Doug Smith will join us later on to take a look at the editorial cartoons this week that'll be in our papers. But first, let's introduce our guest, State Representative Dan Carter, who is challenging Richard Blumenthal for the U.S. Senate seat. Dan, we're so happy to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you. And Josh, she's not watching. Trust me. She's preparing.
Probably not. I wouldn't blame her.
She's preparing. A lot of work to do.
So, Dan, it's great that for you to come on and come by here today. And what I'm wondering, before we kind of dig into things, I've noticed you've been having maybe some trouble getting a lot of press around the state. You're running against a guy who maybe be, the only person in America who gets more press than him is Chuck Schumer. So, and that is in Richard Blumenthal, our was running for a second term as U.S. Senator. So who is Dan Carter?
Well, first I'll say I'm not really having trouble getting press.
Okay.
It's like money. I'll never get as much press as Dick Blumenthal has.
That's true.
The guy shows up for every garage door opening in town, so he's got press. But we're doing a really good job getting out there and hitting him on some really important issues. I'm a little bit of a scrapper myself. I grew up in a middle class family. My dad was a police officer. My mom was a nurse. Very big on service growing up. I'm an Eagle Scout. It was very important to me to be involved in the community. And when I went to college, I chose ROTC. So I spent 10 years on active duty in the Air Force as a pilot. Finally attaining the rank of major. After I got out, I was with the reserves for a while. And I was in healthcare for 15 years. So obviously you can see everything I do is kind of about some sort of service or making the world a better place. So I've tried to keep that at the core of my campaign. I'm a state representative. I spent 6 years in the state legislature, had a ball doing it, and been able to work with some people that have been amazing on both sides of the aisle. And I think it's time to be a real senator. I think, I criticize Blumenthal a lot because, he'll take on a lot of important issues like falling furniture and AstroTurf and genetically altered fish. But, when it came to giving Iran a nuclear weapon, not so much, Dick. So that's kind of what I've been hammering him on. Yeah.
So now, Dan, you received the party's nomination back in April, and before that there had been some discussions that maybe Larry Kudlow would run. August Wolf was also trying to get the party nod. Right. What made you decide to go for it, especially against such an established candidate and a face in Connecticut?
Well, it's I think like a lot of people, there's a little bit of a Blumenthal fatigue. I've seen him being the guy who's out in public a lot, and he shows up to every event, but I wasn't feeling like he was accomplishing anything. And there were a couple things that particularly hit me hard. In the last fall was the Veterans Accountability Act that he blocked. It was Marco Rubio's bill. Being a veteran, that really upset me because I felt like he was putting politics first. And then the other thing was the Iran deal. By giving Iran a nuclear weapon, I've said this many times, we've just supported the foremost state sponsor of terror. They abuse women, they kill members of the LGBT community. It's just a horrible idea. And we're now dealing with all the things I said we would. So when March came around and August Wolf was in the race and things weren't looking great in his campaign, Larry Kudlow had said he wasn't going to get in, who is from Reading, which I really support him. It seemed like the right move for me. It seemed like the right mission to take on this kind of fight. And I know it's a Dan and Goliath race, but I really do think we have a shot.
Okay. So a couple weeks ago, though, the New York Times said that you have a 1% chance of winning the election, which is drastic. And obviously, that's not that you're going to get 1% of the vote, but that you're running against someone who's rather entrenched, people have been seeing Dick Blumenthal on their ballots since, they were, going to the ballots with their parents, probably, going to the booth with their parents. So what is it like to be up against this mammoth of a attorney general and U.S. senator and this guy he's been waiting forever to become U.S. senator. The Democrats have this gigantically deep bench. The Republicans have not. But you're a good establishment candidate with a record of legislating in Hartford, of like you said, of working across the aisle, of getting things done, which is, I guess, What drives
What possessed
you?
me?
Yes, yeah. I guess.
I know that's what you're getting at.
Yeah. I was just trying to figure out a polite way to say it.
Well, first off, I want to publicly say formally thank you to the New York Times because you've just said there's a chance. and here's the truth of it. This is a weird year. We all know that the political establishment is reeling on their heels because they're getting so much blowback right now because of what they've done for so long. And see, Blumenthal is at the core of that establishment, and that's why when I go out and I meet people across this state, I get a lot of support. It's amazing. There are very few people who go, I really love him.
Right.
Very few people say that. They know who he is, and the name ID is there. But there's not this palpable feeling of saying, I really want him to be my senator. In fact, a lot of people will say, he's been an okay attorney general, but I think he forgot that he's not an attorney general any longer. Yeah. And that is why, I am so hopeful as I move across the state that we have this opportunity to show what a real senator would do. Somebody who could take on the issues and talk about the issues of the day that are important. Nobody's talking about China and the expansion in the Pacific Rim. They've just put their first military base overseas. Nobody's talked about that. And I think while Dick is involved in all these local small potato kind of things, which may be important to a constituency, he's ignoring our security and safety, which is exactly why people won't vote for him. And not to mention the economy, folks. When it comes to not lifting a finger to help us and going against balanced budgets, that's not what they expected. The constituents out here expected of Dick Blumenthal.
Now, Dan, on your campaign website, you actually kind of mentioned that Blumenthal subscribes to the Dan Malloy School of Economic Development. Obviously, Governor Malloy, very low approval rating. Yeah. But what do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, there are people who pick the political angle of any issue. See, Dan Malloy picks things like the first 5. Now, the first 5 gets him on the press when they bring in a company, but nobody's talking about the 10 companies that just went out the back door. So by choosing the camera over the people, this is what we ended up with in this state. And Blumenthal's kind of been in the same boat, where we've had opportunities to do things to help our economy. Whether it's federal enterprise zones or major changes to the taxes, he doesn't support any of that because he's too busy out here trying to protect us from the next thing, or saying airline seats are too small. And the real problem with that is when he takes on these issues or ignores issues, the consequences are usually bad. Do you realize if you looked at your cable bill right now, your cable bill is twice as high because he was more interested in a small group of people with gas pump issues than taking on SNET. That's what happened when he was Attorney General. That's our legacy. But today, we got to worry about our safety. The fact that we now have the $400 million ransom that just went to Iran, that money can be used for horrible things. They just kidnapped an American professor out at the American University in Kabul. Nobody's talking about that. The world's a dangerous place, and I think people understand that, and we can't have Dick Blumenthal just choosing the camera anymore.
So Dan, what's your opinion? You look at, Dan Malloy, who's never been above 50% in his approval rating since before he was elected governor, now 6 years ago, almost. And why do people like Dick Blumenthal and Dan Malloy continue to get elected in this state when it seems like, Blumenthal's approval ratings are certainly better than Malloy's, but is it a Republican Party problem, or is it that the Democrats are better at campaigning or better at getting in front of the camera? What do you think?
It could be a lot of things. One of the things is the numbers. Look at the way Connecticut's situated. Even when the Foley race came around, how many towns did he win, yet he didn't win?
Right.
Because, Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven carry large voter blocks, and that definitely sways things in this state. There's no question. And people are busy, and they're busy running their lives. So there's always been a certain amount of apathy in politics that they don't pay attention. That's why this year is so crucial, because you meet people moving out of this state in droves. And Dan Malloy and Dick Blumenthal, those guys are the ones who've been running the ship for so long. And that's why I think the people are now waking up. I think it's a matter of waking up to what's going on, and I think that's what's happening.
Now, as far as national issues, what are some of the ways that you think you would better represent Connecticut, in the U.S. Senate? Well,
a couple things. Obviously, the key thing I hit Blumenthal on is focus. It's about priorities. When Blumenthal right now is here in Connecticut talking about falling furniture, like I mentioned before, nobody's talking about what's happening in China right now. Nobody is watching what's happening, even talking about the G20. Look at the fact that the Iran deal, we have to do something to bring back those sanctions at this point. And, Our relationship with Israel is in deep trouble. In fact, I just went to Israel during this campaign to actually talk to them and kind of get a flavor for what they were thinking about this. And I think by taking on those serious international issues and getting involved in those, number one, that's where we make some changes. Now, there are some things on the economy side we have to look at too. I'm not going to be, blocking balanced budgets. I'm not going to be, the Zika bill that just came through. Should come through, right? They just blocked it for a third time. The Democrats blocked the Zika bill because it was funding all the money through public health channels. And because they didn't carve out a piece for Planned Parenthood, now they've made this a political issue. So, you know what? I support Planned Parenthood. Just stop making this the political football and get something done. That's what I'll do as a United States Senator.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Kate.
So I do want to ask a little bit about gun control.
Sure.
You do represent a part of Newtown, and you voted against Connecticut gun control laws a few years ago. First, what went into that vote, and what do you think should be done on a national level?
Okay, so what went into that vote? Obviously, prior to the gun violence working group, which I was a part of, I put in great legislation that actually supported background checks, that supported the ability to find people with mental problems in a home and keep guns out of the home, or at least put safe storage in the house. I addressed education. I addressed, if you have somebody who is guilty of a gun crime, that they don't get an early release or a parole. Like, all my legislation did the kind of things that actually could have prevented Sandy Hook from happening. The gun bill that we put through did none of that. It wasn't going to prevent anything like that from happening again. And it was very political. It just had to ban the gun that was used in Sandy Hook.
Right.
And that's not the way we proceed. Not to mention the fact that there were a lot of really good Democrats around this state who voted against that bill because they knew it did nothing for the inner cities. If you want to actually make changes nationally, yes, we fix the NICS system, we do background checks so felons don't have guns, but we do something to address gun trafficking, especially right now here on 95 in our state. And that's why people are dying in our state over and over and over again. It's not what they're trying to politicize. I also don't believe you raise money off of it, off the tragedy in Sandy Hook. I've been pretty hard on Blumenthal and Murphy on that issue. So I think it's time we get some real changes in place, because what they're doing is not helping anybody. They're making it worse.
I think you're completely right about that, particularly about the gun control, and that after Sandy Hook, that terrible massacre, Chris Murphy made it part of his. He just became senator shortly after that. But it was all about the politics and what you could make. It was almost like showing off. The Democrats were showing off to the other Democrats in Washington about what they could get done here in Connecticut, and not actually choosing to fix a problem. And you see that with Dick Blumenthal's, his press releases. You kind of have to check to see if he's still Attorney General, because you still get the same press releases that you got as Attorney General. But here now you have a rather loud candidate running atop the ticket for the Republican Party in Donald Trump. How do you one, are you supporting him, and two, how do you get out, I guess, from under his shadow here in our small state? Well,
it's interesting you mentioned the shadow. I mean, obviously, there's no way I'm ever going to support Hillary Clinton. I mean,
yeah, right.
Military veteran that I am, there's no way I can do it. I don't trust her. And I go around the state and I see very few people who feel that way or who don't feel that way. A lot of people look at her and they just don't like her as a candidate, which leaves Trump. And you go around the state, and especially in the eastern part of the state and the northwestern part of the state, people are coming out in droves who've never voted before. And I think in Fairfield County, I'm feeling this sense that people support him, but they don't want to say so.
Right.
Because they just don't want to get beaten up by their loud neighbors, because we're blue Connecticut, and that's kind of what happens. People are always fighting with you about your politics. So I'm going to support our Republican nominee, and that's just the end of it. I think that at the end of the day, we're going to see Trump do okay in Connecticut, and I tell you, it's when I'm out there talking to people, they're coming out in droves for Trump, and I think the ones sitting in Fairfield County on their couch right now, they're going to vote for him too, even though they're not crazy about him as being the best candidate.
All right, it's kind of a vote against year, maybe more so than a vote for year.
It may be, because very rarely do I see somebody who says I love Hillary Clinton.
Right.
And and she's so controversial and in my view corrupt, that nobody wants any more of that political corruptness and that establishment that's going on. Dick Blumenthal is part of that whole venue. That's why, her and I always like to tie them together with Dan Malloy, 3 peas in a pod, because, the 3 of them will not be honest, and they'll say things to get themselves elected in front of the camera. Like Blumenthal's Vietnam lie. I have totally come out with that because a lot of veterans like me don't give him a pass on that, and it's still a bigger issue than people think.
Yeah. Of course, Donald Trump has also not proven that he wouldn't be a corrupt president, I think, to be fair, based on a lot of the things he's done in the private world. But that's,
Well, I think the question with Trump is what's his motivation? And we all have to figure that out. Yeah. I'm worried about Dick Blumenthal. I'm worried about this race. I'm worried about helping Connecticut. Because you know what? Listen, if Donald Trump is president or Hillary Clinton's president, I am going to be with them on the issues that's good for my state, and I'm going to be against them on the issues that's not. That is my job.
Now, I do want to say Republicans on a national scale sometimes get a reputation of being anti-LGBT rights, women's issues. Where do you see yourself and stand on some of those issues?
Yeah, fully supportive. I mean, I don't know why Republicans always get the bad rap. I mean, I think in politics, people like to take the party and go with the extreme part of the party and say that's how we all stand.
Right.
The majority of us, listen, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in individual rights. The government, I don't want to be in your bedroom. I don't want to be in your bathroom. I don't want to be anywhere near that because you are a human being and you deserve to pick your partner in life and live a great life. That's it. Yeah. So it should never get that tangled. And I have a lot of friends who support me in that community who I love dearly, and that's where we go with it.
I think the national vibe you get from the Republican Party hurts the Connecticut Republicans a lot, for the people who are, as you said, sitting on the couch and not fully involved in everything that goes on. I think most of us who follow this see that most Republicans in Connecticut are fiscal conservatives and generally libertarian when it comes to most social issues. Right. And have proven too, when they're in power, we actually do a little bit better.
I think you're right. Serving in the State House, every so often an issue would come up, and most of the time Republicans weren't driving that. You get 1 or 2 people who are very, very socially to the right, and they want to be involved in that and put some. But majority of us just want to do what's right by our state, and we're not caught up in that. But again, being Republican and having an R next to my name means people like Dick Blumenthal are going to try to come out and paint me for who I'm not. Yeah. So that's why I've been very, very big on staying with the issues with him, staying on, where I think he's made mistakes, where he's been wrong for our state, and why I can do a better job.
Cool. Now, Dan, what's next on the campaign trail? We're in September now. What's your strategy?
Well, my strategy is keep doing what we're doing. We just got a 9-point bump in the polls today, which is great. So we're making positive feedback. We're moving the needle forward. Cool. I think people now are really paying attention because it's post-Labor Day, and that's really important. So I think we're doing great. We have a number of fundraisers going on. I'll never have the millions that the 7th richest guy will ever have in the Congress, Senate, but. I think we're doing really well, and I've got a crack team of people, and I've got people from the state who are coming out, and everybody out there who sees me at a fair, thank you, because we've had great support around the fairs, and I work the train stations a lot, so if you see me at the train station, please stop and say hello.
Great. Right. Well, it takes a brave man to run against Dick Blumenthal in Connecticut, so, thanks for stopping by today.
Well, it's my honor to be here. I love what you guys do, especially representing some small communities like I do represent Reading. What you do is really important, getting the news out and also tying our community together. It's really important. So it's my honor to be here.
Well,
Thanks,
we appreciate that. And I'm
Good
sure
luck.
we'll be talking to you as we get closer to Election Day.
I'm looking forward to that.
State Representative Dan Carter, thanks so much for joining us. We are going to step out for a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the news stories we're following this week on CT Pulse after this. Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
Hi, this is Leo Carl from Carl Chevrolet in New Canaan, and you've heard me talk about the Chevy Volt for years. The new model gets 53 miles on EV charge daily, plus 420-mile full range. But don't take my word for it. You need to come in and test drive the Volt yourself. Visit us at 261 Elm Street in New Canaan or online at carldirect.com.
At the Ridgefield Suzuki School, we believe that every child can. Using the internationally recognized Suzuki method, children learn to play their instrument in an environment of encouragement, parental support, and community. The Suzuki approach seeks to develop the whole child, to help unfold his or her natural potential to learn. Private lessons and group classes are offered on violin, viola, cello, and piano for children ages 4 and up, and young children can enroll in their school's early childhood classes before beginning an instrument. The Ridgefield Suzuki School, nurturing a love of music in all children. Call us at 203-403-2667 or visit ridgefieldsuzuki.com.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter. And I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
You're watching the HAN network, and you're not alone. More than 1.5 million viewers have watched our live sports, news, and entertainment broadcasting since the network launched in August 2015. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
We are back on CT Pulse on the HAN network. Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher. We just wrapped up speaking with State Representative Dan Carter, who is challenging Richard Blumenthal. I thought that was a great chat. If you missed any of it, folks can watch it on demand.
It was nice to talk with Representative Carter, and I do think it does take a brave person to run against Dick Blumenthal. Yeah. I mean, I remember we interviewed Dick Blumenthal as an editorial board type meeting. A couple years ago. We were still HAN Radio at the time, and he told some story about how he sits next to Al Franken, the former comedian and current U.S. Senator from Minnesota, and about how he pointed out some questions. Franken was talking about this. He goes, well, wait a minute. He goes, now, Dick Blumenthal here was Attorney General in Connecticut for 80 years, so we should maybe ask him about these legal issues. It does feel like he's been around forever, and it is, though, you look at how people vote, and even in Republican towns, Blumenthal tends to do well.
Yeah,
which is so it doesn't. But I think too that even if Mr. Carter doesn't win this year, it's nice to see that first of all the Connecticut Republican Party has gone with someone who is a proven legislator and knows how government works, as opposed to the last 4 major candidates who have been the same 2 major candidates. Who I'm not allowed to name on air anymore.
It leads to bad things.
They're going now with someone who actually who could show that he can get something done and work and know how government works, because that's what worries me too about Trump is you get these people who say I'm going to run government like a business. Well, you can't run government like a business, unfortunately, unless you blow the whole thing up and start all over, which maybe Donald Trump will do. So maybe we will vote. I'm not allowed to tell who I'm going to vote for till after I get married, though, Kate, to make sure that I do actually get married.
She might not marry him, We'll see what happens. But we should say Senator Blumenthal was our first guest on CT Pulse.
He was, way back in January.
And, we talked about a lot of things, but when you brought up the upcoming campaign and the re-election bid, he did not mention that. He said he was kind of focused on his job, and it seems like he's still kind of ignoring his opponent now.
It is. Well, Kate, if there's one thing that's true, all politicians, they only focus on their job. They're never worried about getting elected.
Campaigning. No.
It's never. It's just like, they show up in November and make sure that, someone votes for them and move on. So speaking of showing up in November and getting elected, we did our election show, obviously.
We did.
It was on election day, coincidentally.
Local elections, municipal elections.
It was a big upset, which remember we predicted before the show started.
Yes, we're so smart. Yeah. All right, so let's first tell people what we're talking about. Weston First Selectman Nina Daniel, back in November, beat incumbent Gail Weinstein, who's a Democrat, by just 110 votes. So interesting story there, but the big news today is that Nina Daniel is now taking a medical leave of absence from her position as Weston's first selectman. This was an announcement sent to town hall workers this morning. Selectman Dennis Tracy said the leave will run for the next several weeks, but Daniel expects to be back to work by October 3rd. No one has elaborated on the reasons for the leave. I'm sure, of course, there's plenty of rumors swirling around town, but this actually was discussed in an executive session at a selectman Selectmen meeting in Weston. Tracy has been acting as interim first selectman since last Wednesday and said he plans to continue to do so during Daniel's medical leave. He said town business will continue as normal.
Right. I think, too, to toot our own horn and the HA Network's own horn, this is some really good reporting by Patty Gay, the editor of the Western Forum, that Daniel was on vacation, an extended vacation for 2 weeks, was on the front page of the Western Forum last week. And it was like, why is this on, what is up this? And then Patty broke this story today, which was that came out of a discussion in executive session. So really good reporting by Patty Gay, who, herself is a former first selectman. She was first selectman of New Fairfield
Which
years
I didn't know until last year. That's amazing to me. But yeah, Patty Gay does an awesome job at the Western Forum. I haven't seen the story anywhere else.
And good for Patty, too, by the way, because she got a lot of grief from... what was her?
Gail Weinstein?
I used to know it all the time. Now, from Gail Weinstein and the Democrats in the town for, one, endorsing Daniel, and then also for some of the coverage. But this shows that it doesn't matter to Patty who's there. Her reporting continues to be stellar.
Right. And you know what, just briefly, like a little aside on that, as far as our local newspapers endorsing candidates, I know we all have different feelings about it, but you always make a good point in that we cover these people and these candidates in and out. So we actually are fairly well equipped to give endorsements.
It's different than if it's like a paper like the New York Times or maybe even, the Hearst papers where at those papers there's full editorial boards that make the decisions separate from the reporters. We have small staff. So the editor is also the reporter and sometimes also the photographer and also doing the layout and doing all sorts of things.
And doing
broadcasting. But in return, though, so I think also that takes some courage to go out there and tell all your readers.
I've managed to avoid it by giving, information, but trying to stay out of it.
By leaving jobs just before the election so you don't have to endorse them.
Yeah, of course. That's what I do all the time. It's my MO. But just an interesting story there. But you can follow that at thewestonforum.com.
Let's keep following that.
Now, in another story, I just think U.S. Senator Chris Murphy finds really interesting ways to kind of reach out to his constituents, get in the press. Now, he just walked 126 miles through 22 towns. This is him in Stratford being welcomed to the Sterling House. He started in Voluntown, which is near the Rhode Island border. I think we actually have a map of his route that he took, and he ended in Greenwich. Now, this is pretty darn impressive to me, at least. 126 miles. And in fact, we had our favorite photo. He's been tweeting, Snapchatting. He had a blog. He's hiding in a box in Milford during rainstorms last Friday. Now, we actually wanted to get him on the phone, and this is a video of him walking into Stratford with none other than Senator Richard Blumenthal.
Who doesn't? It looks like Senator Murphy's shoes are more comfortable than Senator Blumenthal's shoes.
I would say so.
Melvin Mason, Stratford Star editor, shot that video.
Yeah.
Well, all we need is some Proclaimers music on in the background here. This would be absolutely perfect.
But I do have to say, I think it's a very neat idea. He posted so many pictures of him with local business people, him talking about some national issues with folks. So very cool, and he did blog about it.
It is. For much as I guess I personally or philosophically disagree with a lot of what Chris Murphy stands for, he's done a really good job in using modern media and different ways of whether it's spreading his name out or getting ideas and talking to people, and that's neat to see because it is obvious that he is of a new generation.
Right there too.
Obviously, he's Snapchatting.
If the volume was on, he said, "I have to send this to Snapchat."
So I mean, why?
I'm the only one who's not on Snapchat, but I swear that's going to change soon. I've been being harassed by our staff.
Yeah, Frank and I have been making some great filter lenses of Kate. We're and Eric's gonna put together a nice theme for her on her birthday. Don't tell her; it's gonna be a surprise.
Now, the last thing we want to mention, Josh, is our football coverage starts this Friday.
Yeah, I'm psyched.
I'm very psyched too. I know you're going to be busy getting married and stuff, but it's going to be a busy time.
But you know what, Kate? You can watch it on your phone.
Schedule.
So I figure I could be up there, be like, I do. Oh my God, Danbury just scored.
Now, you can watch it on Mix Sports at 2 o'clock to find out way more about it, but we just want to mention we will be We will be in Ridgefield on Friday. We'll do a coffee break there. I'll have some guests from the Ridgefield Police Department. FCAC tailgate starts at 5:20. It's going to be a great time.
It's going to be great, and we're going to be doing at least 4 games a week throughout the entire season. This will be fun, and it's not just football. Of course, we're starting off with football on Friday and Saturday. Saturday, but then we're doing soccer, field hockey, and volleyball. The cross country championship is always a lot of fun at Waveney Park, and we can't wait for our new sports director Frank Granito to really kind of get going. He's been he's really livened up Coffee Break here with you.
Yeah, and we weren't on last week because we were on the FCAC tour, which is our pre-tour we do before all the seasons start. We interviewed all athletes and coaches. All those videos are posted at
And all of us spend 6 straight days together on an RV. So
yes, that sometimes gets smaller or larger depending on.
It was really nice to be away from all of you guys over the 3-day weekend.
It was, and now you get to be away from us for a while.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Well, we are going to step out for a break. When we come back, Doug Smith's going to join us, and we're going to take a look at the editorial cartoons this week after this.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
Warm weather, light breezes, boats are in the water. There's no better place to celebrate summer than the Dock Shop. Whether in Darien at 51 Tokenique Road or Westport at 609 Riverside Avenue, the Dock Shop is where you'll find everything you need to kick off summer. From the latest summer apparel to the newest fishing tackle, the Dock Shop will help you get the most out of your next beach day or harbor cruise. At the Dock Shop, you'll find a wonderful selection of items made in the USA and right here in New England, all with a distinct nautical flair. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the coastal lifestyle, this is a unique place to shop. DockShop.com.
I'm Denise DiGregoli, the host of The Drive on the HAN Network. Join me Tuesdays for some motivational, intelligent talk with a little humor as we visit with people who live their lives mindfully. Tune in to The Drive live on Tuesdays, 12:30, here on the HAN Network.
I'm Frank Granito. And I'm Donald Ing for the HAN Network. Tune in to Nutmeg Sports Monday through Wednesday, where we bring you all the top stories for Connecticut sports. From players and coaches' interviews to expert opinions with local sports editors, no one gets you closer to Connecticut's games than Nutmeg Sports. Nutmeg Sports, Monday through Wednesday at 2 p.m. on the HAN Network.
Give your day a jumpstart with the latest news, sports, weather, and more on Coffee Break, live on the HAN Network, weekdays at 11 a.m. Connecticut news doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break.
Doug Smith is in Amish country for drawing conclusions this week, but actually he's made it all the way back here.
Yes.
Doug, we're so happy to have you.
I know, they kicked me back out. So.
We should get a red barn maybe in here.
Yeah, get their English out of here, yeah.
All right, so Doug, we missed you last week.
Yep.
But we're going to take a look at what you have for us this week. What's up first? Okay, tell us about this one.
Oh, that's the etiquette column. The writer's
Michaels.
Yep, she's just talking about a co-worker in the office who just keeps yawning continuously. And when they do it, they have to make the exaggerated noise. Okay,
that would get a little annoying. What was her advice? Do we recall?
Just politely.
Throw something in there.
Throw something in the
there you
open
go.
mouth.
Big cork or something like that. But politely mention to them, like, "Oh, are you tired?" Something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, have you ever worked next to someone who clips their fingernails?
Oh.
I always bite mine. So.
Yeah, I bite mine,
Mine's
so
fine.
there's no.
Oh,
It's
okay.
pulling out the fingernail clipper. I think is.
Yeah,
Like,
that would be a pet peeve of mine.
They grow every day.
That'd be a pet peeve. Matt Green at the Richfield Press, I'm sorry, but he did that.
Mac, you just got called out on CT Pulse. Whoa! All right, I'm canceling my honeymoon. I'm afraid of what Kate's going to say.
Anyway,
about
okay, up next, this is also about a column.
Joe Pisani,
Pisani's.
and he's talking about in his business, he has to leave his cell phone on next to his bed at night, and it's constantly buzzing with useless direct from the Kardashians to reality shows, Donald Trump, and it just always keeps him awake at night.
Poor Joe Pisani is stuck with all this Kardashian stuff in his life.
And he has a tiny bed.
Did you go?
Is his wife in like a matching one?
Probably she resigns him to a closet in a little room or something.
I think Kate thinks that you went to his bedroom to draw that.
All right, up next, I love this. The Milford Wine Trail, Saturday, September 10th.
Yep.
The dogs picked up the scent. He went this way. I love it. Very cute way to promote a local event. And tell us about this one.
Oh, that's the Shelton police dog is getting some body armor. Just making a big deal out of it because I guess it cost a lot. And,
I love the tail armor, too, included in that. It's great. And a little pizzazz.
Sure mutt.
And on a more
And finally,
serious note,
yeah, just a little memorial for 9/11 that some of the papers are running. We've run this before, and
yeah,
just
it's a very
so we don't
powerful
forget.
one.
It's
Yeah,
very
no, and
sweet.
I love the shadow of the two towers.
Yep.
Very powerful stuff. Doug, thank you so much as
Thank
always
you.
for joining us. All right, we are going to wrap things up. Josh is going to be gone for a couple weeks. He's going to be honeymooning, and congratulations
Don't miss
to you
me
and
too
Liz.
much. Don't miss me too much, Czaplinski.
All right, I won't, trust me. All right, so everyone, we will see you next week at 12:30. I will. Josh won't be here, but have a great day. Nutmeg Sports coming up at 2 o'clock, so check that out. We'll see you later.
Bye.